Hi everyone, welcome to another Facehammer Age of Sigmar free or hashtag new AOS video. And in this video we were going to talk about all things crumping, all things combat, and some of the nuances about the new edition that people might not notice when they read through the rules if they've been used to playing Age of Sigmar, but makes a significant difference.
A couple of words changing can really change things quite a lot, and a lot of stuff has changed in the combat phase, hasn't it? It's an important phase anyway. So yeah.
So we finally got sequencing for strike first, strike last, which is I want to do a little dance around the table, but you know, it's I'll wait for an event for that and maybe some run. So we're going to talk about a few different things. So we'll talk. I'm not going to go through everything step by step because there's a lot of rules in the combat phase, and I'm assuming you could either A, read the rules, or B, you played Age of Sigmar before and you have an idea how it works. So one of the things that's kind of important, and we need to talk about it probably straight away, is piling.
Yep. So previously you had to end your piling closer to the model that you were closest to anyway. Basically, right?
Yeah. So
what is it now?
It is now unit. So most finishes with no further from the nearest enemy unit than it was at the start of the move. So it used to be model. So if you had a model like a dragon and there was two models touching it, it was impossible to move, because if you move this way, you're no longer close to this model. If you move that way, you're no longer close to this model. If they're in the same unit, you can now pile in around stuff and over stuff. As long as you end up in base contact with something in that unit, you're fine.
Yeah.
It also means when you pile in your army, if you've got a guy in base contact that you kind of want to like get out the way, that's fine as well. So you can slide them round, no problem, which is, you know, no different. But it's just important that basically when a model piles in, they've just got to be closer to the unit. So even if you've got a unit of 10 guys and your front rank are all touching their front rank, you can pile that guy into their back rank as long as they're still close to that unit, no diff further away, and then someone else can fill that gap. You don't have to stay next to that model. It's a really nice change because it means you don't get locked into weird situations.
It also means the end of, you know, weird situations where this guy can't move because he's closer to some unit over here, and you know, people, I'm going to have to learn how to rescreen and protect my monsters, basically, unfortunately.
Yeah, so it is actually quite difficult. Anyone with like quite a good piling speed is going to be quite scary.
So all those things that didn't feel great now, like you can pile in 6 inches, but you can't pile in from 6 inches, that's now pretty good, right?
Yeah, because it allows you to like slide across units or go over the top, because you don't have to worry about still being in base contact to the model you were touching. So you can basically be touching the model in the front rank and then fly over the top and touch the model in the back rank. It's still not, your model is still close to that unit as it was when it finished its move. It's just a different model in that unit, but it's still within base contact. So it allows you to do some really like funky things like piling in sideways and then hitting something else that's within reach. So it's quite hard to protect heroes and stuff near combats, which kind of represents that swirling melee of your guy going out and going for that key model.
It's quite hard to protect the thing you're doing it with, though, as well, right? Like, so both you can get anywhere, but you can be reached from anywhere. So monsters are now less restricted, and your opponent is less restricted in getting into them. So I suspect it's going to mean stuff dying faster in general, which I'm fine with, actually.
It just means that like combat units generally get to bring more of their attacks to bear. Now, obviously, people know about the coherency changes, and on the reveal for the Stormcast, there was a bit on that, and I've done a video where I explain that in a lot of depth. There's a couple errors I made in there, but nothing too major. It's just when my eyes didn't see the one model that was within an inch where, you know, I was crossing stuff out. But basically, if you've got a unit of more than 5 models, you've got to be within 1 inch of 2 models of your unit, not 1. So you can't do like lines and things like that. So actually, when you get into combat, you've got to be really careful how you pile in, because sometimes you'll pile in and you'll bring you can't pile in out of coherency, so you need to be like really careful. But because of the fact you can now slide your models around a bit more freely,
you can
it's
shuffle
less restrictive.
Generally towards your target rather than having to be like, oh, this guy. It's going to speed things up, which is nice.
Yeah, it does make a huge difference, because there's a lot of time where you'd have to watch your opponent go, well, you can't really move that way because you're now further from this model and this model, and you get these little like wanky millimeters, or you're just out there and then you can't reach it. Now it's like, well, I'm still touching the model, so it's fine, right?
Brad's going to have such an easier time when he plays me. Like his dreams come true.
Exactly. I think with the new edition, more of the stuff around when you use your command abilities and how you construct your lists and where you put stuff is more important than the minutiae micromanagement of piling in and reach. It's still important.
I'm just going to take Slanesh and stop people from piling in, and I won't worry about it.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, that works.
Yeah.
So the other thing in the combat phase section is we get to see this strike first and strike last effects box. Now, I wanted to talk about this because it's quite nice to see it split out. And one of the important things is that you've got this start of the combat phase, abilities are used, then it's units that have strike first effect. So before it was, if you strike first at the start of the combat phase, you could go, I will strike before you use your abilities because it's my go.
And so this is abilities like so-and-so model at the start of the combat phase can pick an enemy unit within 3 inches and on a 3+ do mortal wounds.
Or
that type of thing.
So it's quite nice. So it says that some abilities are an effect that allows you to fight at either the start or end of the combat phase. They're called strike first, strike last abilities. So it's basically saying in the rules in sections blah 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 do not apply, so they use these instead. So it kind of supersedes some of the early rules about abilities and timing and things like that. So if a strike first effect applies to units, those units fight before all other units. If a strike last effect, they fight after all other units. If strike first applies to both units from players' armies, the players alternate rather than one goes first, one, because again, you had that, it's my go, so I'm going to do all mine first. It's now alternate. Also, if strike last is also alternate, and then if you're affected by both rules, they cancel out and you just go at the normal time.
Makes loads of sense.
It very clean, makes loads of sense, right? Probably how it always should have been.
Yeah, I like it. It's so magic.
It is. It's like the what's it called when you have it on the? It's the stack. Is it the stack?
And, I love the stack. Just makes everything make sense. Put them in order. Work through them backwards. Done.
Probably another thing we should talk about. We talk about combat is modifiers.
Yeah.
So
it sounds like it got more complicated, but it didn't.
So you always fail on a 1 for hit and wound, as we know, and for save. A hit roll cannot be modified more than +1 or -1. And it says sometimes an ability will allow a single hit roll to score 2 or more hits. If this is the case, make all the wound rolls or save rolls for those hits at the same time. So it's basically just saying how exploding attacks work.
Yeah.
Then you've got the same with wound rolls. So again, it's the same. So 1 fails, a 6 always wounds, or 6 hit always hits. A wound roll cannot be modified more than +1 or -1. Now, what's quite important about this is that it's when it modifies, you add up all the modifiers and then get the net result. So
I should say there's an imaginary in total basically there, isn't there?
So if you were -4 to hit and +1, it wouldn't be -1 +1 net result. You're on your normal. You'll be -3, which then gets restricted to -1.
Yeah.
So means that basically stacking bonuses is still useful because it counteracts the negatives.
In particular, yeah. So you stack it according to the situation, but you can't. Sorry, Lumineth, you can't be -7 to hit.
And obviously,
everyone's weeping for you.
Saves have the same rule, except that they can be modified negatively more than 1. So if you've got Rend 3, 4, 5, But again, it's cumulative. So if you've got +3 to your armor save and they're Rend 2, you'd still be at +1.
Yeah.
So, and save rolls do not always succeed on a modified roll of a 6. And they could be modified more than -1, which is that designer note you can see there. So, I mean, it's fairly straightforward, but it's quite important, because it basically means that in the game you can stack lots of negatives or bonuses, but it nets out, but there's still a value to doing it.
Yeah, I mean, the key things that are particularly affected by this are, you know, you don't have to weep if you're turning up with giants or something like, you know, that someone's not going to make you -3. You're not going to have your entire army only hitting people on the 6s. Plague bearers shooting, you know, -2. Cool if they've got +1, but yeah, I think it's nice. It also means that at some point you just have to stop doing maths, right? Oh, you got more than me, it'll be 1.
Yeah.
You got less than me, it'll be -1. Done. Okay.
Yeah. And I think as well, like, what's quite nice is you can still use like all-out attack to counteract the -1 as well, or all-out defense.
Oh, okay, yeah. No, really good point.
So
get those unit champions in, boys.
And then there's the ward save wording under the wound section. So basically, ward saves are effectively after saves, and you can only use 1. So you can't use a 6-up, 6-up, 5-up. And that's all it is, really. I mean, there's not much more to say about that. I mean, there's not a whole lot of different changes, but I think in terms of
they're important.
Yeah, in terms of in the combat phase, that's fairly important stuff, you know. Yeah, it's definitely good to know. I think the piling and coherency is pretty important. And one thing I will point out, actually, while I'm here, I was just looking at my notes trying to remember where it was. Luckily, I've put number references, which is 1.6.4, so it's right at the beginning. So
excuse me, it's 1.6.4.
There's a thing called triggered effects. So it says the effects of some abilities are applied when a dice roll triggers them. For example, the effect of the ability might be triggered if the modified hit roll is a 6. A triggered effect is applied immediately after the roll that triggered it. If 2 or more effects are triggered by the same roll, only one of those effects are applied. So if you've got
what does that mean?
So basically, if you get a thing that says on a 6, you do 2 hits, but they've got a thing that says you must re-roll 6s, they're both triggered on a 6. So only one applies. And the player who made the roll picks. So let's take Wither Stave and your Slanesh ability to explode attacks.
Oh.
So you roll to hit and you roll 4 6s.
Mm-hmm.
The Wither Stave says, oh, you've rolled a 6. That triggers the effect. You've got to re-roll them. But you also have a triggered effect which says they end up with being 2 hits. Or 3 hits if the demonettes are a big unit. And because you're rolling the dice, you'll say, well, I'll have the extra hits, please.
So, okay. That's cool. But it also means that some things that end up stacking their own abilities
don't stack.
You're going to have to pick. So silly, poopy, Slaves to Darkness, Nurgle lists that have like this 6 does a mortal wound, but also it can do an extra pip of rend. You're going to have to make a choice which one of those you wanted to do.
Yep.
Cool.
So it's quite a subtle but important thing to think about. So it will come up with some interactions. So yeah, it's just important to know, I think, that
kind of interesting, isn't it? Because whether it could be your opponent's turn, they're attacking you, but it's something that is on your save roll, therefore it's in your favor, or it could be your opponent's turn, but you're attacking them in response, and it's your roll, so it's in your favor also. So yeah. I like it. That's
so whoever's rolling the dice gets to pick
another level of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, I knew there was something, and I was just thinking, where is it? And my notes did cover it, so I was I'm almost impressed with myself.
Super shit. 1.6.2 is excellent. Yeah, excellent. That's wonderful. Good planning.
So I think that's it for combat phase changes that are important. I think they sound very simple. That makes quite a big impact to the game. So
it does. I think. I have a feeling like elite units are going to get a bit more relevant in the game.
I think it's so much change. It's really hard to know.
I'm just going to write an army and play a game.
We had a nightmare when we were like, oh, we're changing all this stuff, and it's like, yeah, let's play games, and you were like, oh my god, it's like learning a new game. Once you've played a few, it's fine, but it takes a little bit of getting used to. So
sure.
Well, hopefully these videos are helping you out with that learning curve. So hopefully that's useful. And yeah, well, that'll be it for this video, and we'll catch you again in the next one.
Yeah, absolutely. More tips coming up. Stay tuned for tomorrow's.
Yep. Cheers, guys.